couple of years ago, Jack Pirtle was achieving what many would consider success as a dairyman and a businessman. Yet, despite how things looked on the outside, he had never felt emptier. But it was from this low spot, Jack found his faith in the Lord and began his transformational journey. Today, we are catching up with this New Mexico dairyman who is now on a mission to transform the hearts and the lives of other men, including his Spanish-speaking employees. And the results have been more powerful, personal, and purposeful than he ever could have imagined. All this and more right here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Jack, welcome back to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast.
Yeah, it's nice to see you.
I want to say about 1.5 years ago, you were on the show and we talked about some of your adventures in dairying at the time. We also talked about some other things that were going on in your life, including a total transformation of your faith. But for the purpose of this conversation, let's just start out. Catch me up on what has been new at Pirtle Farms in the last 1.5 years.
Not a lot has changed. The dairy seems to be running pretty smoothly. We haven't really made any big changes. I think when we talked, I was still making the change from Holsteins to Jerseys, maybe hadn't completely changed all the way due to some quota things in New Mexico and West Texas. And so we've completed that transition. I don't have a single Holstein left. I had to make some modifications to my parlor, and the Holsteins couldn't fit anymore, so I had to get rid of them. So they're all gone, and it's 100% Jerseys now. And yeah, everything seems to be clicking pretty good, and our production's pretty decent. Our fat protein is pretty high. We've made a few adjustments on how we've cut some feed a little bit different, some pre-head wheat that we added to the ration that we weren't really doing before with the Holsteins that we do now with the Jerseys. We're milking still around 5,500, milking them 3 times and raising all the replacement heifers. And then in the transition, we started breeding Charolais to the Jersey and got that beef on dairy cross. We were sitting there looking at that, and I think they were bringing $60 or $120 maybe at the time, and trying to figure out what we were going to do. We want to keep selling them day old, or do we want to raise them and sell them 450, 500 pounds? And there was a few neighbors of mine that were holding on to them and selling them at 450. And so I went and bought, I think it was like 1,000 hutches or something, and doubled the size of my calf operation, and we started raising them. And doing that, I'm selling, I think, 200 a month or 2.5 loads a month right now. And the calf beef on dairy market has doubled or tripled in the last 2 years. So that's been a huge benefit for us and a huge source of income that we didn't have before. We're also feeding some Angus cattle, some older mama cows that are pregnant, no longer can kind of make it on the ranch. You guys bring them in the fall, and so we're feeding those, calving those in, keeping the calf, raising the calf, and then selling the cow back. And so that seems to be working too. But that's been a big change for us.
Jack, when we would have talked again 1.5 years ago, the story at that time that we focused on was you going from being a farmer, really a crop guy, and that being the core part of the family business, to a dairyman literally overnight, converting the herd. And now let's loosely add one more title to your business card, and that's rancher as well, right? A cattleman.
If you'd asked me 1 year ago, what does your morning look like? It would be driving around, checking feed on 1,000 beef animals, and then checking on 500 cows out on pasture and calves, which is really nice. Looking at the cows and the calves and watching them graze is pretty soothing and really a great start of the day or end of the day, depending on what time I go.
So you have continued to diversify. You mentioned too that you're now raising out those Jersey Charolais crosses. And at what point do you send them off? You said you have hutches on site there. So you've got those babies. How long do they stay with you before you send them off?
We raise them right along with our Jersey heifer replacements. And then when they hit weaning age or weaning pens, I didn't have enough pens on the dairy because I had sized it for replacement heifers only. So then I move them off site to a neighbor's empty dairy that I'm leasing out some pens. And so I'm still in control of them, but they're off site. So it makes the feeding of them logistically a little bit difficult. But yeah, we keep them, they hit the 500 pounds somewhere around that 250 days, 245 days old. I've been selling them to the same guy for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And so we schedule loads every other week on Fridays for whatever reason, but every other Friday. So we load out 95 of them every other week and send them. So yeah, about 250 days.
I'm curious too, Jack, over the last year and a half, what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you faced as a dairyman?
Well, so the inconsistency in milk prices, I think we're sitting there at $20, $21 and going, man, it's never, will never go down again. It will never maybe reach the $10 or $12 again. Having that there, and then in the past 6 months, we've lost, oh my gosh, let's see, $6, $7 in class 4. And class 3 is struggling as well in that $16 range. And price of cheese, price of butter has really gone down. And so having that plan or trying to plan the future of what we can do with the dairy or what we want to do with the dairy, how much it may produce, the swings are that big. It's really hard to make really good plans. And time was good, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's okay, and now we're back to some really low prices that can't be sustainable for very long. So in the past 10, 12 years, I've started hedging quite a bit. And so I have a lot of my milk protected out into like even September, October, November of this year at decent levels. So we're weathering the storm, and hopefully by the end of the year and beginning of next year, we're back closer to $19, $20.
What's your read on the outlook of dairy in your area in New Mexico? What do you think it looks like 5 years from now?
In Roswell, it's been pretty tough. I mean, there's been quite a few guys retire. A few guys have moved. They're still milking cows, but a lot of guys have retired. There's been one dairyman come in and start dairying where a guy had left. But I had built a new parlor. We had kind of talked about that on our last call in 2017, and there really hasn't been any reinvestment into the dairy industry in Roswell. So there's a Leprino here, a large Leprino, and within the next 5 years, there's going to have to be, or will be, a large dairy built. I don't know by who. No, I don't think anybody that's currently here. I think somebody from the outside that's looking at 10,000 cow new construction will move in and help supply the milk that has been lost here.
So what you're seeing then is a retraction in dairy numbers, cow numbers that go along with that, and also milk production, which could be an opportunity for somebody else to take advantage of and step into.
We all know it's very costly to ship milk down the roads. It's a little bit of a shift in different co-ops in the area and what milk is going where. I think for Leprino, DFA ships to them, so I think it'll be a DFA move coming in here to supply milk into that plant instead of having to ship it hundreds of miles. I think it's kind of where it's coming from right now to supply the milk that was lost.
So an ongoing challenge with the local milk markets there. But if there's one thing that I've learned about you, Jack, it's that you have a way of figuring things out and adjusting quickly and pivoting fast to what needs to be done to keep going and keep growing. It's been fun to catch up on the dairy side and what's been going on in the business. But the other reason that you and I are visiting today is it's more than that. And last time we talked, our conversation took a turn that I don't know that either of us was expecting, but you shared something that was really powerful and really personal. And it had to do with a transformation that you experienced in your own life and really a transformation with your relationship with Christ. Can you revisit that a little bit?
Yeah, so I can remember the question because we had kind of talked beforehand, and there was a question there that you had asked. It was like, why do you get up in the morning? When I was answering that question, it could very easily be, what do you get up? Well, I get up to check the cows, or I get up to check the feed, or I get up to make sure that everything's running right. And what was motivating me at the time, and most of my life, has been Christ and glorifying Him. And in my journey, I had fallen off. I had gotten lost. I don't know how else to explain it, really. My aim was off. I wasn't glorifying Him. I wasn't being who I said I wanted to be or was. and just found myself in this place of disappointment or lost. I knew the answer, but I wasn't searching it. I wasn't searching out Christ. I wasn't following him or listening to him. And so doing business deals or doing relationship or being a father or a husband, it wasn't glorifying God. It wasn't where I knew it needed to be or where God says it should be. And so I found myself in a really dark place and stuck. I had allowed sin to come into my life and really was running my life. And sitting there looking at it down at the bottom and looking up, going, how did I even get here? What was it? And then figuring out what those things were and finding that there were some traumas in my life and some things that I didn't even realize that were running my thought process and things I had buried deep inside and didn't want to revisit. We talked about the Rise Up Kings organization, and I found them on Facebook. It was a Facebook reel, and clicked on the link, talked to a guy, called me, and went to an event. It was a 3-day event, and it was like a rewiring, a reset, an opportunity to start over and really who do I want to be, and then mapping out how do I get there. And so that was kind of the start. And our talk was like 3 or 4 months after that 3-day event for me. And so it really was a transformation and a mindset reset and a really look at what's inside of me. What was I allowing to come into my life? What was I allowing into my heart? And it was of the world. It was of the flesh. It was the shows that I was watching, the content that I was looking at online, the thoughts that I had, the anger, the disappointment, the shame, even some shame that I didn't even know that I had, if that makes sense, from some trauma from my childhood. And I was not showing up as the father that I needed to be, the husband that I needed to be. And that trickled down then to the boss, the business partner, the friend, all of the things. And so realizing, hey, I'm really missing the mark here, and what is missing. And then what was missing is I was searching gratification from success, from money, from status, from outward appearance. And what was missing was Christ in my heart being hardened by sin and all the worldly things you can think of. And so given that an opportunity to open that back up, allow Christ to come in and fill my heart back up with his love, his grace, his patience. For me, it was like, wow, okay, now I want to take this and move forward. And it really changed how I looked at business and how I looked at my family, my 2 kids and my wife. And this is not who I want to be anymore. And this is who I do want to be now, is a man after God's own heart. And that transformation was really, really new when we talked last. And so in the last year and a half, I've really been able to really kind of just continue to stay consistent and dive into the truth that God's word, the Bible, has for us and how to live according to that. And so bringing that to my family first, bringing it to my workplace and to my partners, to my employees, to my vendors, and everybody around me.
First, thank you for revisiting this conversation. And thank you even more so for the initial one that we had when this was also fresh, because what you are what you are articulating and what you experienced is not uncommon. It's not strange in our industry, right? Or any other for that matter. It's that slippery slope and that shadow side of success that you talked about that can shift to a place that maybe started out as you talked about, right? Rooted in serving the Lord and rooted in honoring God in your days and your work and your life. And sometimes we slip into a place where you don't even realize how far away you are. And that's where you were at that time, wasn't it?
You can really tell a lot about who you are, or about somebody, what's important to somebody. So it's like, for me, where was I spending my money? And then on my calendar, where was I spending my time? It wasn't in prayer, it wasn't in church, it wasn't in giving. And so I wasn't living the life that I knew God had created me to live. And so in the Rise of Kings organization, the CEO, Skylar Lewis, was a very successful business owner, and he started small. I think he did some restoration businesses and was out in California, and was one of those guys that's always looking to learn. And he became very, very successful. His business was very successful, and he was a Christian and he was a man of God. But he's just kind of looking around and was like, they don't really talk about God at these seminars and at the top and all these successful businesses. And so he took the idea of this self-help and business model and added God to it. And said, hey, I want to help successful businessmen or men that want to be successful reach the top. But when they get there, not to have that empty feeling, because there's a lot of successful guys that get to the top and are still feeling empty inside, because that's really not what we are here to be or do. I think we were created to follow God. We were created to honor, glorify, and worship Him. If you're not doing that, there's still going to be a part of you, a part of your heart that's missing. These top CEOs or business owners get to the top and go, well, hey, I'm here. Now what? I got everything that money can buy, but I don't have a very good marriage. My kids don't want to have anything to do with me. I'm out of shape, and my business is thriving, but they have nothing else, and very lonely and very unsatisfied. And so he took that idea and created this organization around building men the right way, and they stand on four pillars, of faith being the top one. Whenever I realized, hey, I wasn't where I wanted to be, faith was not at the top. It was more like the bottom. If you want to create an organization that really thrived and really taught on faith being the number one thing that you get up and go after, and then family being second. And I think a lot of people, when you ask, like, oh, I'll do anything for my family, I'll fight for my family, fight for my kids, I'll do anything. And then it's like, really, really got to look at yourself and go, are you actually doing that? Are you just saying it? It's real easy to say, hey, my kids are the most important thing in my life, but are you spending the time with them? Are you showing them the right way to act or live or treat your wife? Or are you just saying that because you're providing money, or you're providing a roof over their head, or anything that they want? And through my journey, I can understand that's not what the kids need. It's not what your wife needs. They need more of a leader, more support. And so you got faith, family, and then fitness third. You're taking care of yourself physically, mentally. Is your diet, is your relationship with food, is if you're not in the best shape, or mentally your strongest. So if you're sedating with alcohol, with drugs, with food, even some of the foods that we do eat cause brain fog, causes tiredness, and all these things. And then last is finances. And so he built this whole organization on faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I had mine flipped totally upside down. I had finance, fitness, family, and then faith. And so I kind of going through the teachings in the class, man, I've got this totally upside down. And so flipping that thing on its head hasn't been easy, but that's been the journey that I've been on. And so he organized that, put that together, and I think it's 6 years now, 5 or 6 years, and there's guys like me and others listening all over the United States and the world, as we've started doing this also in Mexico and some other countries that I think are maybe on the list of places to do these things. But a lot of guys out there that were in my situation were or are in my situation, and that was Skylar's vision of going out there and giving me an option, giving me the opportunity to see where I am missing the mark.
Wow. Jack, that's a deeply personal and very brave and vulnerable for you to be open about what was going on in your life. I thank you for it, because I know there are others out there that can relate to where you were. Somebody listening is there right now, and you are providing a living testimony that things can change and people can change when you decide. And so, what's changed for you? You mentioned these four pillars and how you had them upside down. So, what does it look like in your daily life to have faith first and your family and your fitness and finance all in the right places?
Faith being the number one and the biggest change in my journey. And I think the two words that would best describe the change in my faith is obedience and surrender. So there's something to know the Bible. There's something to know what's in there, read it. It's another to obey it. What John is talking about, what Matthew's is talking about, and when Jesus is talking about dying to the flesh. And it's easy to read, but not as easy to do. And so in doing that has really opened up my eyes and opened up my soul and my relationship with God, and where, I would pray at God before at dinner time, and it was always a really short prayer, nothing really personal, and praying maybe when somebody was sick, or praying when life was really hard, or when somebody had passed away or something like that. But it was always praying at God, never praying to God, and never waiting for his response. And I can tell you one reason I didn't want to wait for his response is I didn't want to hear what he had to say. To be completely honest, because what if it wasn't in line with what I wanted to do? What if it wasn't in line with how I was treating my wife, or how I was raising my kids, or how I was running my business? But what's changed is asking him to show me, to lead me, to guide me, to fill me with the words, or fill me with wisdom, or guide me through type thing. And that's been the biggest change, is daily reading, or I put the Bible app on, was my first thing in the morning. And so I'm still doing that. I've gone to the Bible, I think, twice now. I'm back to just like, hey, okay, now where are we at? And John 6 really stuck out, last week. And when Jesus fed the crowd of people, and then they came back and were like, hey, now what? We're hungry again. And Jesus is like, you're searching for the wrong bread. You're talking about bread to feed your flesh, and the bread that you need to be looking for is the bread of life, which is me, who God has sent from heaven. That verse and that scripture this past week was just like, all right, there's still stuff in there, and there's still things that hit a little different as my journey is continuing. And the faith pillar has been the biggest. And then family second. And so my kids are grown, 20, 21 and 23, and we still have struggles, and we're still going through things, and using what I've learned through the Rise of Kings organization and communication, and trying to use that with them, and with my wife, as we move forward in life. And what does that look like, and where are we headed? And my son's engaged to be married, and so what does that look like for him and for his fiance? We're just kind of all in as a family. Rise of Kings also they're also doing it for women as well. And so both my daughter and my future daughter-in-law and my wife have all gone through a women's event as well, and working on their selves, and working on their journey and their faith. And they want to walk closer to the Lord, and they want to also be better stewards of what God has given them. And so that's kind of how it's changed in my immediate family. And then fitness has been one that's been a little weird for me. I was pretty fit whenever my journey started, but it was a vein. So I've kind of let that kind of go. Has changed a little bit. I'm not really searching affirmation from other guys at the gym, or even women at the gym, that would say, "Oh man, what do you do? You're in such good shape." But I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't for my health. It wasn't so I could show up for my family and live a long life. For them, it was because I wanted other people to notice. I haven't been in the gym in probably 3 weeks right now. That's not really the priority, but my diet is still pretty good. I still watch what I eat, pretty clean. I don't eat out unless I really have to. Tracking my macros, hitting my protein, hitting my carbs, and my fat. And then I did step into jujitsu. I've been doing that for about a year and a half. And so I still get 3 days a week of hard cardio. And then my finance, it's been blessed. Like, we've been blessed as a family, we've been blessed as an organization, a company in the last year. And as I feel it's still important, like, my grip is a lot looser. I was looking at an investment, and my sister was like, how can you not be worried about it? And I said, because God's in control. And I just have a loose grip on my personal money, a loose grip on the business as well, and try not to to be in control or control the outcome. Look at the investment, look at the guys in the investment, and try to find guys that are like-minded, that are Christian, that are have the same goals and purposes I do, and roll with that. And so she was like, "Wow, I just can't do that." And I said, "Well, it's actually easy. It's easier for me now, like to make investments larger than what I have in the past, where I had such a tight grip on money before. Dollars or $5,000 was such a large amount of money for me in my past, and I was really tightly gripped to it. And then the giving on top of that has become more enjoyable and larger than what we've seen in the past. And so that's been a lot of fun figuring out what to do with some of that. But yeah, that's kind of been my flip.
That's a major flip. And you said these two words before, and I think you just showed the example of how you're living them out, but obedience and surrender. Obedience to the word and surrendering what you used to hold so dearly and control tightly, and really giving that up to God. And Jack, it's incredible to hear what this has been doing in your life. So when we talk about giving, there's the financial giving, but then there's also giving of your time and energy. And you have really been on a mission in the last year to give that time and energy to other men and helping them on their own journeys. I love that we can catch up, because last time when you and I talked, I remember asking you how you were taking what you were learning about yourself and putting that into practice with how you do business and how you deal with people on the dairy and in your other ventures. And at that point in time, you weren't quite there yet. It was something you were just starting to lean into and figure out. Since then, you have taken this so hard and so fast into a full-blown on mission to bring other men along for their own transformational journeys. Tell me about this. What's been going on? What's a couple of stories of how you've taken your own transformation and shared it with others so that they can have that experience too?
Timeline wise, it'll be 2 years in March or April or something when we first spoke. And so I was still on my own personal journey trying to figure out how do I take what I've learned and somewhat inject that into my dairy, where we are really busy and we don't have a lot of time off and we can't just shut down and do things. And the other thing is 95% of my employees are Spanish and speak Spanish. Some speak both English and Spanish, but there's probably 70% of them that to have a conversation with, you would need to know Spanish to have that conversation. So I'm sitting there through my personal journey for April, May, June, July timeframe of that year, sitting there going through some classes, watching podcasts, talking to some advisors or mentors, I guess you would call them. And they're talking about how to interject your faith into your business, not just to me, but like to a group of guys. And I would so very easily and fast just go, they're not talking to me. Because I don't speak Spanish. My guys don't speak English. Like how, so maybe I could have a Spanish pastor come and do some prayer time or hand out some Spanish Bibles or some literature or something like that. So I very, very quickly and easily just kind of put that down as, hey, he's not talking to me. And so months and months later, so probably even into the beginning of 2025, February, March of 2025, I was still like, that's not something that I can do. And it's just never going to work. And I found myself another place. You talk about my journey, like handcuffing God or putting him in a box or doubting him, as I was like, okay, all right, God, like, what does it even look like? You know, because he keeps putting this on my plate of, hey, you need to share this with your employees and share this with, and I'm like, I don't even know where to go. And a guy, his name is Eddie Barajas, walked into my life March of 2025, and he walked right up to me, and we were at a Rise Up Kings organization event, volunteering. Both of us were volunteering now. And he said, do you have Hispanic employees? He had no idea who I was. He had no idea, that I did. He was just asking everybody because he was on a mission. And he was born in Mexico and lived in the United States, lived in Seattle, had a business in Seattle, and went through the same transformation I did. really similar. And he got put on his heart, hey, there's a whole group of people in Mexico, Latin America, that need this. And so he was looking for guys. And so he walked right up to me and says, hey, do you have Spanish speaking employees? I said, well, I have like 50. He's like, perfect. We're doing a Spanish Rise Up Kings event, the first one in July. Would you want to send anybody? And I'm like, well, I can't send them all, but I can probably commit 4 or 5. And he's like, perfect. And then he walked off. Went to the next guy. And so we connected, and he stayed on top of it. Hey, who you sending or who you got? And I'm looking around the dairy going, man, I don't know. I don't even know how to. So I ended up putting the word out, and I had 5 guys interested. And we did a Zoom call. And he got on the Zoom call, talked to him, and I had 4 guys go, I'm in. And I'm like, wow, okay. Out of 5 guys, 4 guys said I'm all in. And the event was going to be in Dallas, and Dallas is an 8-hour drive for me. And the week before, for circumstances out of my control, the event got moved to Seattle, Washington. That's where Eddie's home was living, and he couldn't do it in Dallas. And he's like, okay, no problem. We'll just bring him to Seattle. Well, Dallas is an 8-hour drive. Seattle's a 24-hour drive. And here we are the week before the event. And so I even had people tell me, well, you've done enough. Catch the next event. One of my guys walks in the office. He says, he put it in his English. He said, so the field trip is canceled. And I kind of took that. I'm like, bro, the field trip. No, the field trip is not canceled. We're just, instead of leaving on Thursday, we're leaving on Wednesday. And he's like, oh, okay, what time? And I'm like, doing math, 5 in the morning. We all got together Wednesday morning, loaded up in my truck, and there was 4 of them and me. And we took off to Seattle, Washington. And we slept for 4 hours somewhere in Boise, Idaho at a hotel somewhere. I made it right on time, and I dropped my guys off at the event. And so I remember going, and Eddie never told me whether I was going to participate. I don't speak Spanish. So I'm just like, I'm bringing my guys. I'm going to drop them off, go to a spa, or relax after such a long road trip, right? And I drop them off, and Eddie says, hey, man, come check out where we're going to do the event at. And so I drive over. It's in the mountains south of Seattle, and I walk up this trail, and the Holy Spirit is already just all over the place. Like, I could just feel it. I walk around the corner and hear his whole team is kneeled down and is praying over where the guys are going to start this event. And I joined right in there with them and never left. And got to experience transformation of not only my 4 guys that went, but the other 6 that were there in a language that I didn't understand. But the Holy Spirit speaks no language. It was the most life-changing experience that I've ever had. And the moment that they gave their life to Christ, and the look on their face of like eternal gratification, like the best present, best gift that they could have received. And I had missed all of that in what I was doing for them. And so the transformation coming back from that trip for me was probably as much or more than what they had. And hit the ground going, man, I got to do more of this. So the next month I sent 4 more. And had the same experience again. And the next month I sent another, I think the next month was 4 or 5 more. And so I think I've done 16 so far, and then I've sponsored a few others outside of that. And so the transformation of the guys that have gone has been nothing short of God working through me to them. And so just trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? I'm serving as deep and as much as I can through this, because I can definitely see the benefit for these Spanish-speaking employees. Some from Mexico, but some from Guatemala and some from different countries. It's really cool. I mean, the Holy Spirit really grabbed a hold of me and opened my eyes and shook me to, hey man, here you go. You prayed for a door to open up. You looking for a purpose? Here's your purpose. Right? Purpose. Here you go.
It seems like that purpose is very clear, and the door was more like a floodgate once you had that first experience of taking 4 employees to and through their own transformation and their own, in some cases, first or reborn relationship with the Lord. And you didn't even really know what was going on in some of these guys' lives. They worked for you, but you didn't really know some of the personal struggles that they were enduring. As you got to know some of their stories, was there a little piece of you that connected on some level with some of the things that they were going through?
For sure. And so through my best Spanish and their somewhat broken English, getting to talk to his heart and talk to him as an individual and not as an employee. This guy, he was crying on one of the events or one of the things that they're going through, and he's just, I mean, tears are just flowing. He's like, I'm going to be a better employee. And I'm like, man, it's not even about you being a better employee. It's like it's about you having a relationship with God and that you go to heaven. And then that you have a relationship with your family, your wife, your kids. And then you can't help but be a better employee. You can't help but show up, have that drive and have that love for what you do in a day. You're following God. And like I said, even if you don't work for me, if you go through this and go, man, this is not for me and I'm going to do something else, I'm like, I say, go do what God wants you to do because this isn't about you as an employee. And when I first talked to Eddie, that's kind of how my mind was like, okay, I can send my employees through it. Not in a selfish way to get a better employee back, but kind of somewhat like, hey, what's on the back end of this thing? It was very early on in my first visit there that it wasn't even about that.
So I know it's not about business or how they perform at work, but I can't help but wonder, have you noticed a difference in company culture or culture of the team because of that transformation that so many have experienced and are also sharing with the others?
Well, you can't help, right? It can't help but make that type of change in what the conversation is. Now we're talking about God. We're talking about life. We're talking about family instead of what guys normally talk about. And now we're focusing more on legacy, on what their future looks like, their kids' futures look like, and their whole family in situation, and not so much, hey, can I get paid by Friday so I can go buy a 6 pack of beer and forget the whole week? That's been a huge shift. There's a guy that works for me or works with me that I've shared my story with that wants to go. Are you still sending guys to the program? I'm like, yes. I'm still sending guys to the program, and whoever wants to go is more than welcome to go. Whether they come back changed or not, like I'm just opening the door and giving them the opportunity for change. My reason and my purpose for putting my guys through it, and it's not to a return on investment is nice. That's not the reason.
It goes back to those 2 words, obedience and surrender. Obedience to take them through it and surrendering the outcome to something bigger than yourself. And it just gives me the little chills to hear these stories of what you're doing, what it's done for you personally, and how you've taken these steps to it to bring others along with you. And there might be people out there that are listening in today and something is just hitting them and they're thinking about maybe themselves, and maybe they can relate to the place that you were at one point. Maybe they're thinking about some of the people on their own teams or friends that they might have that are a little misdirected or out of alignment on their own path and seeking the wrong things in the wrong places. How can others in the dairy business get involved in the work that you're doing and leading and find the resources and the outlets to be able to do that too?
Going through the program and being 2 years, since my transformation now, that's the best decision I've ever made for myself. And you talk about return on investment in a business. We were talking about that for the employees, but for somebody listening to this, business owner, non-business owner, just as a autonomous human being on this earth that wants to learn more about themselves and their purpose and why God put them here, like this event for me, and the event also would be for them. would be an opportunity to find out who that person is, find out what is missing, what is keeping you from being the man or woman, because there is the women's event as well, man or woman, what is keeping you from being closer to God and being that person that is loving, that is generous, that has patience, that has forgiveness in their heart, and able to be that light for their family and lead. So I was at an event a couple months ago, and we were all praying. The guys were all lined up, getting ready to do their thing, and we were quietly kind of praying. These were all other coaches and volunteers. And I said, "You're leading your family whether you know it or not. You're leading them either through the pain and the suffering and the darkness, and leading them to Christ." And that was kind of my situation. My wife was more of the leader, and women are built, children are built to follow the man, and I was leading them down the path of destruction and sin and darkness. And this world, I tell you now, working in this organization and seeing some things in spiritual world and talking about demonic presence and demons and the devil and all that stuff is real. I mean, there's a dark side. This is a spiritual world. We're in a spiritual battle. I'm not in a battle with another man. I'm not in a battle with anything other than evil itself. It's in the spiritual realm. This is an opportunity to really, dive into your faith and who you are, and where you're headed. So you got anybody out there listening to this, or know of anybody, this is the best gift I ever gave to myself. And you can't take anything with you when you die, and it's not about what you say, it's about what you do, and it's the fruit that you're producing. And you're standing in front of God one day, and he's like, "Okay, well, who did you bring with you?" And you're like, "Oh man, I just came by myself." And so now I'm on a mission to bring as many souls as I can with me. And so if you're listening to this call and you're like, "Man, I also want to turn my life around, and I also want to lead my family, and I also maybe want to find my purpose," the Rise Up Kings organization was that for me. And I know you can find them if you just search Rise Up Kings on Facebook or on Instagram, and there'll be a link there. Or if you want to share my cell phone number, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with anybody that has questions as to how to get linked up with those guys and have your own experience.
Just to reiterate that, the organization that you've been referring to that has changed your life is Rise Up Kings. And through this organization, which will include the links in the show notes, as well as your personal contact, Jack, for other dairymen and women that want to lean in and get a little more personal insight, not just on how they can utilize these resources for themselves, but to maybe even consider doing what you've done. And that's bring others along on their own transformational journey. And those others might be in their family or their team of employees. And the ability to have these resources in Spanish that touches the lives of so many of the people that make up the fabric of our dairy industry here in the US. And look at what we can do to be able to do more than give employees a paycheck, but truly help them see their own purpose, their own potential, and something bigger than themselves, something bigger to live for, and the way that that then impacts everything else for their personal lives, their family lives, and even the way that they show up to work is just the bonus that you get to experience because of, again, obedience and surrender. Jack, so grateful for you reaching out to me to revisit this conversation. I hope and pray that this will land on the ears of the person that needs it today. And it will inspire and motivate and move within some listener out there to bring their team along on a journey like this.
I just want to add something. If somebody's listening and you're going, "Yeah, well, that sounds good, but I'm in New York, or I'm in upper Midwest, or even Florida, or too far from Dallas," just know that God works in mysterious ways, and lean into that. And I was also putting him in a box and not allowing him to do his work. And as soon as I let that go, he did a lot of work. So there's a lot of options. If you're even considering it, but thinking there's something in the way, there's definitely definitely nothing in the way that God can't overcome. So thank you very much for having me and all that you do for me and for the dairy industry.
You just heard from dairyman Jack Pirtle here on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. For more information on Rise Up Kings or to reach out to Jack personally, you can find all of the contacts and links in our show notes. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and until next time, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy.